Someday we'll get to do these in person again.
We're live.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us for our monthly town hall. My name is Julie Briskman. I'm supervisor for Algonquian District on the Loudoun County Board of Supervisors. Thank you for attending our town hall on Parks and Recreation. It was important to me to hold this event in July, as this month is National Parks and Recreation Month. Every day in communities across the country, the hardworking employees of our Parks and Recreation departments and regional parks are providing essential services and making their communities better places to live, work, and play. The recreational, human services offered through these facilities really do improve our quality of life, which improves our overall community health and even improves our property values. Just as water, sewer, and public safety are considered essential public services, parks are vitally important to establishing and maintaining quality of life in our community, ensuring the health of families and youth, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. Communities that pride themselves on their quality of life promote themselves as desirable locations for businesses to relocate, and claim to be environmental stewards of their natural resources, always have robust, active systems of parks and recreation programs for public enjoyment and use. An hour is not nearly long enough to tackle all of the subjects related to parks and recreation services and programs, but we hope to touch on several biggies. For example, recreational facilities and community centers have been severely impacted by COVID-19, resulting in various closings and rapid change in operations. As Virginia continues to open, more Loudoun residents are taking advantage of recreational opportunities. The county still offers many ways people can get outside while staying safe. We'll talk about one of my highest priorities, trails connectivity, specifically the Potomac Heritage Trail and Emerald Ribbons, and overall efforts to expand recreational opportunities. Lastly, we'll get an update on future facilities expansions such as Potomac Lake Sportsplex in our district. I'm pleased to be joined by Loudoun County Parks, Recreation, and Community Services Director Steve Torpey, Nova Parks Executive Director Paul Gilbert, and Loudoun County Parks, Recreation, and Open Spaces Board Member representing Algonquian District, Jimmy O'Connor. Jimmy has been volunteering his time in this position for many, many years, and I want to say I really appreciate his service. This town hall will be recorded and available on my Facebook page, facebook.me/Supervisor Briskman. And questions can be submitted live to my legislative aide, Zachary, at zachary.harris@loudoun.gov. And with that, let's get started. Steve, as I mentioned in my opening, COVID-19 has had a significant impact on parks and recreation facilities throughout the county. Now that Virginia is starting to reopen, what has the county done to keep people safe, and what can individuals now do in the county that they may not have been able to do in phase 1 and phase 2?
Well, thank you, Supervisor Briskman, for hosting this forum. We do greatly appreciate the opportunity to talk with the citizens about the many outstanding things that are happening within Parks and Recreation, and it's especially meaningful to be having this discussion during National Parks and Recreation Month. So thank you very much for this. Just like everyone and every business, the coronavirus has impacted Parks and Recreation and has made us really stop and look at how we deliver services to the public. Just this past week, I was speaking with my staff, and I really shared with them how proud I was at how they had approached our response to the pandemic. And really, in all honesty, the entire county's workforce response has been exceptional, in my opinion. From a planning standpoint, we had to go back and rewrite most of our operational plans. We had to go back and establish new policies and procedures that would allow us to continue to serve the public while keeping the public safe and as well as our staff. That included establishing things such as health screenings for some of our programs that are coming in. It included establishing new limits on the numbers of people who could participate in our programs at any given time or be in our facilities at any given time. It meant providing virtual programming, which you would think in a time or in an area that is so heavily internet and computer based that we would have that already, but a lot of the jurisdictions, including Loudoun, had not relied upon virtual programming in the past. And that became a big way of reaching the citizenry. And even still today, you can find all of that if you go to our website. And we've got a page called Creating Community During COVID-19, and it's all of the different things that we did over the past couple of months and are continuing to do. It also meant establishing enhanced cleaning procedures. I mean, we've always had clean facilities, but based upon the guidance of the CDC and the VDH, the Virginia Department of Health, we had to enhance that cleaning so that it was a safe place for folks during this pandemic. And it meant considerable training of staff and education to the public on how they can still participate in our programs, but do it in a safe manner. So
I know that you guys really turned on a dime and worked really hard to try and make sure that you could still offer programming, and we appreciate that. As a county resident for more than 20 years and having raised my kids here, we've definitely made use of some of the more obvious parks and recreation facilities like Claude Moore, Idle. Could you share a little bit, though, about what else Parks and Recs and Community Services actually does? Because I'm not sure the community actually understands all the services that you do, such as, food services, childcare, those sorts of things.
Absolutely. And thanks for the question. The Parks, Recreation, and Community Services, we used to be the traditional Parks and Recreation Department. But back in 1996, we merged with the Area Agency on Aging and Loudoun County Youth Services, and that's where you get the PRCS that everybody knows us by, Parks, Recreation, Community Services. So we have our traditional Parks and Recreation offerings such as parks and trails and swimming pools, community centers, recreation centers, but we also have the Area Agency on Aging within Parks and Recreation, and that's where you have the senior centers. We have the adult day centers, which are three of our programs that provide day center operations for folks with dementia or Alzheimer's. And so that way those folks are able to stay in their homes with their loved ones, but during the day they come to our facilities and we provide licensed care for those residents. We also have a children's program division that provides traditional summer camp program, provides schools out camp program, and also provides the CASA program, which is in over 50 locations throughout the county. And on any given day, we provide care, a recreational program, but after school care for about 2,500 elementary age students. And then we also have a program that serves all of the middle schools called the YAS program, the Youth After School program, as well as youth services that does different programs in the schools and in the community for the youth of our county. So the sports division works with all of the leagues, and we really just have a wide variety of programs and services that are provided to the citizens of Loudoun County.
And how many employees do you have?
Depending on the time of year, we are a department that has approximately 3,000 employees when you count all of the temporary and part-time employees. But we have about 670 what they call full-time equivalent or FTEs. So not all of those are full-time. Most of them are part-time employees, but it takes a very large dedicated staff to provide the breadth of service and the level of service, the exceptional service that we do.
Wow, that's fantastic. And most of your program from a budget, most of your programs from a budget perspective are self-sustaining, yes?
We have a 50% on average cost recovery for our department. So what that means is our operating budget, about half of it traditionally is offset by fees that people will pay to participate in the programs or go into one of our facilities. However, we do have a lot of programs that we offer that are free to the public, and we think that that is very important as well to have a balance.
And lastly, can you give us a little bit of a background and how your department's involved with the Emerald Ribbons Initiative in the county?
Sure. So the Emerald Ribbons was a group that came forward with a concept, and that grew into the countywide linear parks and trails program that the Board of Supervisors previous board supported in concept, and then the current board actually moved some funding up for us so that we were able to start the process of bringing a contractor on board and developing that the overarching countywide plan for linear parks and trails and the connectivity that would occur through that plan. Mr. O'Connor, who's with us online tonight, who has been an active member of our Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Board for many years, he was one of the several folks from that group that led the Linear Parks and Trails Subcommittee, which was made up of stakeholders, to come up with the scope of work that we put out through an RFP, gathered the contractors' proposals back, and we are in the process right now of finalizing the evaluations of those proposals, and hopefully we'll have that contractor under board or on board fairly soon. But even while we have been going through that process, we've been actively still working to acquire additional either easements or parkland, particularly along the Goose Creek and the Broad Run, which are very, very critical Stream Valley corridors as a part of this overall program, and have been successful with that here recently with the Criminal Justice Academy easement that we got that connects Bless Park over to the Broad Run Toll House property, the Commonwealth property that recently went through the Board of Supervisors, and the park property that comes along with that, which is right in line with Kincora. So right here in the Ashburn area, right along the Broad Run, we'll have a passive park that's well over 200 acres total, with a lot of additional trails for the citizenry to enjoy. So we've been working on quite a few projects and trails initiatives, but the linear parks and trails is one of our primary focuses right now.
That's awesome. Jimmy will hopefully expand on that in just a few minutes. I'm very excited about that. Right now, I'd love to move on to Mr. Gilbert. Thank you so much for joining us. Could you tell us what facilities does Nova Parks have in our county that folks may not actually realize that it's Nova Parks that's managing them?
Sure, absolutely. And I want to echo Steve's thoughts. Thank you so much for having this, particularly for Park and Recreation Month, and all your support of trails and parks. So many people might know the name Nova Parks, but not really know who the heck are we. So we're a regional park agency. So we have parks in Loudoun County, Fairfax County, Arlington County, cities of Alexandria, Falls Church, and Fairfax City. We were established back in 1959, so we've been around for 60 years. And we've really grown a tremendous amount in Loudoun County. And part of our mission is to complement the local park and rec systems. So in each one of those 3 counties and 3 cities, there's a robust local park and rec system like Steve runs. And what we try to do is provide larger parks, some unique destination parks, things that you don't have in every community, but you might want to have one or two of them that you go to, and it just is special and has a lot of interesting things to bring to bear. So I think when you see the list of parks in Loudoun County, you'll kind of get the flavor of that. So Algonquian Regional Park is a 1,000-acre park in the middle of your magisterial district, and it has all kinds of services that I'll go through in a minute. But we also have the W&OD Trail. That is a 45-mile trail that goes through 2 counties, 4 towns, and a city. So if there wasn't a regional park agency before the W&OD, there would be as a result of it. And we acquired all that property from Dominion Power and developed that over the years, primarily in the 80s. And we're continuing to upgrade and do some interesting things there. We have Balls Bluff Regional Park, which is a Civil War battlefield. Brambleton Golf Course. Beaver Dam is a really exciting newer project that we've partnered with Loudoun Water to create this wonderful new park between Brambleton Golf Course, Beaver Dam, and some other properties we own adjacent to it. It's a 1,000-acre property that we're developing some new facilities on. We have Red Rock Overlook, Russ Sanctuary, Temple Hall Farm Park, White's Ford, and then along Route 50, we have a string of parks with a historic focus: Mount Zion, Gilbert's Corner, Aldi Mill, Mount Defiance, and Goose Creek Bridge. So collectively, it's about 3,500 acres of parkland, and we're trying to continue to grow that. We actually have a number of other park properties kind of in the process of being acquired right now.
That's great news. It's actually very exciting. Algonquian Park is definitely a gem. It's very unique. My kids and I went canoeing there not a year or two ago, and we had a guided, tour out to the island. So it's definitely a fantastic amenity for our community. I really appreciate it. How have the Nova Parks facilities adapted in the COVID-19 pandemic?
It's a great question because, like Steve was saying, everything has changed, and one of the interesting things that has happened within our region is all of the park agencies in the whole Northern Virginia region have really been working together, coordinating, collaborating a great deal, more than we ever have. We've always known each other. We've always worked together occasionally, but we've been working together on a weekly basis, and having calls at least once a month, and really trying to, as a group of park agencies, figure out, okay, we have a new governor's order. What does this mean specifically for our kind of facilities and our kind of operations? Because often it's not 100% clear. Sometimes it is when the governor says no more than 10 people, you can figure that out. But we've had to sort of work together, and more minds are better than one mind. So Steve and I have been in a great deal of collaboration for months now, as have all the other park agencies in Northern Virginia. So that's been good. I think one of the challenging things for us is we have 5 water parks, one of them being at Algonquian, and they have needed to be closed this year for a variety of reasons. One is you're not supposed to be more than 10 feet apart within a pool. That's almost impossible to make happen, particularly in a recreational pool where kids are splashing and jumping around.
So hard.
We had a challenge when we were thinking about, could we open an even lifeguard training? Because if you think about it, if you have to have people dive in the water, swim out, grab someone, drag them to the side, practice resuscitating them, you can't do any of that at 6 feet. It's a contact sport. So that was a challenge and disappointment. But every facility that we've opened since the pandemic hit has been hugely popular. So more people are out using the trails, using picnic areas, using everything. If you visit any of our parks, Nova Park, Loudon Park, they are very, very busy because people want to go outside, because we all know that being outdoors in fresh air is one of the safer environments. And so it offers a respite for us when we're weary of being in our, cooped up in our houses. Not very many things are open. Getting outside, connecting with nature is just one of the best things you can do for your stress.
I keep thinking that this pandemic is going to create a seismic shift in how we work, but also I'm seeing a seismic shift perhaps in how we play, and recognizing that there's so much to do outside that we maybe didn't even realize that there is to do in our communities. So one more question, Mr. Gilbert, what are your highest priorities moving, or you say maybe the next 5 years for Nova Parks?
So one of our top priorities is Beaver Dam that we mentioned. We've been working very closely with Loudon Water on that, and are co-developing a new park facility there. So it will probably be 2022, maybe hopefully early 2022, that we'll cut a ribbon on that, maybe mid, I don't know. But it's going to have a crew facility for the high school teams to have really nice facilities for crew. It will have shelters, it'll have trails, it will just be a wonderful gathering place. People will be able to go there and rent a kayak or a paddleboard or that sort of, or canoe or that sort of thing to get out on the water. And I think it will be, it's geographically in the center of the county. It's one of the largest bodies of water. It will be very popular, and we're working very hard to make that really a first-class park.
That's awesome. I can't wait.
And the other thing I mentioned is we're also looking at a number of land acquisitions. So I always put land acquisition as sort of the top thing you can do, because
Interesting.
You can't do anything with parks unless you have a park. So we are working right now on an acquisition of a park on the Potomac in the northern part of the county. And we are working on acquisition of a park just north of Leesburg that has some historic structures on it. So I think in the next year or two, we're going to be seeing even more parks available to the public, which is great.
That's awesome. And I can see why land acquisition would be one of your top priorities, because if you don't get it for the park and it goes to something else, then it's gone, right? So
Forever. Yeah.
We do have a couple questions coming in from folks that are watching, but I'm going to move to Jimmy first. Oh, I turned off my microphone. Jimmy, thanks so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about your various roles that you've had on LPAT and the PROS board, and the things that you're working on?
Sure. Yeah, thanks, Supervisor Briskman. So the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Board is comprised of a representative from each of the districts, so that's 8 of us, and then there's 3 at-large representatives. So those 11 folks meet regularly with Parks, Recreation, and Community Services. It's really an advisory board. So we are each, listening to our neighbors within our own districts and providing perspective and feedback, and really sort of the additional set of eyes and ears on the ground that can help the county manage its facilities and parks, and certainly working in my case working with Supervisor Briskman to achieve your goals, and also serving as a bit of a sounding board for the residents here in the Algonquin district as to what they would like to see as far as parks, recreation, and community services here locally. So So that's the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Board. And then the Linear Parks and Trails Subcommittee is well, much newer, about a year old is that subcommittee's work. That group was born out of the framing around this countywide connected linear parks and trails system, which, as Director Torpy mentioned, the Board of Supervisors endorsed, last year, and then put some meat on the bone, if you will, this year with funding to get that moving forward. So the vision for the Linear Parks and Trails initiative really is to connect the various towns, all the localities, residential areas to rural areas, really providing kind of a lattice work of multi-use trails. That's hiking, biking, equestrian use as the three principal user groups. That would really help people get out, experience nature. Certainly the the tourism within the county is a growing segment, and these trails can provide a real opportunity to embrace that kind of the ecotourism in the wineries, breweries, and those outdoor spaces. So the Linear Parks and Trails Subcommittee is comprised of stakeholders representing kind of the major user groups as well as the major interests. So folks who represent through both professional as well as volunteer affiliations, hikers and mountain bikers and equestrian users, as well as individuals with expertise in land use and conservation and wildlife habitat. So Linear Parks and Trails Subcommittee is seeing through the early days of this countywide trails plan. And as Director Torby mentioned, we hope that soon, I'll say by September, hopefully, we'll have a consultant on board, a contract approved that will take this plan really to the next level, which is really mapping out and deeply envisioning what the county can look like through a robust network of trails, and what that costs, what it costs not only to develop but to maintain. Maintaining trails is really the greater challenge than it is to build them initially. As Mr. Gilbert said, acquiring the land is the key stuff. Without the land or the ability to use that land, such as through an easement, you just don't have a park or a trail. So that's an important piece of this initiative moving forward, that certainly the LPAT committee, as well as Parks, Rec, Community Services, and certainly the Board of Supervisors will be looking at, is that land acquisition, land use.
So in your work, have you been able to identify yet what the top priorities might be when we're looking at this interconnectivity, the LPAT interconnectivity in the county and even in the Algonquin district?
Is that for me?
Yes.
Yeah. So one thing that we wanted to be careful of as a committee, and I think as a county, was coming up with sort of the decisions about how this would look and feel before we've really thoughtfully engaged the residents within the county. Some of the ideas that we've had that I think are excellent ideas are looking at the accessibility of trails based on distance for where somebody lives. I live in an HOA, and I'm also looking at one of the county parks through my window right now, so I have great access. Others who would have to drive to a park or drive to a trailhead, what does that really involve? And so kind of looking at the metrics of what's involved in accessing the trail system is one. But in terms of the design of the trails, looking at what we'll call nodes, and it's kind of special places, and giving or allowing, I should say, or encouraging the towns and the different communities and neighborhoods to develop trails and trailside amenities that really reflect their interests, is I think an exciting part of this countywide plan. But yeah, it's the tourism piece of this is I think incredible. In this region, just generally we have a lack of mountain biking space, and the mountain biking community is a large and growing community, nationwide. Certainly, from one of the counties that has the strongest equestrian community, we don't have a lot of equestrian trails in Loudoun County, and so we're losing, if you will, the economies that come around with we'll just say horseback riding, but those folks driving out of the county to ride their horses on any sort of trail with distance. So as we develop the Linear Parks and Trails initiative, as best as we can develop high quality spaces for equestrian use, we retain that economic engine within the county.
I mean, I get frustrated sometimes that I had to put my bike on my car to get to a trail, much less bring my horse.
Right.
I mean, wow. So, but it would be fair to say maybe two things, Jimmy, that the priority would be that we want multi-use, which might mean a little bit more of land than one might initially think. And then the two main arteries, so to speak, for LPAT would be the Potomac Heritage Trail and the WNOD, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah, and that's an important note. Part of this initial planning will also be to what we call master planning. Will be to master plan, a kind of a key signature project, if you will, something that can guide us through the early days of what will be a multi-decade, long-term countywide initiative, but guide us through the early days of looking at how we can engage the community in trail development, and what type of trails are we really looking at, what kind of surfacing works for our areas, in terms of gravel or whatever it might be. So that signature project that we are envisioning is bookended by the Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail and the WNOD. And then importantly, and really reflective of a lot of the trails we're looking at, runs along two stream corridors, one being Broad Run and the other being Goose Creek. So, that happens to fall within the Algonquian District, part of that. But yeah, those, the WNOD and Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail absolutely are two critical, trails within the county.
I was very excited to learn that perhaps one of the initial signature projects would be very close to, and actually partly in my district, because I'm just, trails have always been such a high priority for me. One other question, Jimmy, if you're a volunteer committee, but your meetings, I presume, are open. Are you meeting now? And if so, if the public kind of wanted to sit in on something like that, how would they do that?
Yeah. So and I'll ask Director Torpy to correct me if I'm wrong, but the countywide, the advisory committees and advisory boards, which is what the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space is, have not been meeting during this pandemic environment. I'm encouraged by the news. I believe we will be able to start meeting, if not in August, and I think shortly following. Those meetings are open to the public and always have been. There's a time within those meetings where it's dedicated to community feedback, sort of like a resident forum. So absolutely, and same with the Linear Parks and Trails subcommittee. Those meetings are open to the public as well. Minutes are taken, and we encourage folks to come out and participate. The scheduling of those might is kind of the tough part right now, because it has not been the consistent meeting schedule that we've had forever. But absolutely, and especially as we move forward with the planning for the Linear Parks and Trails, not only will there be and have there been regular meetings, but there will be community forums where we're having professional, landscape architects and designers, the consultant that we will be contracting with, guiding us as a county through the development of this, and that will absolutely include community input and just being realistic, at least for the foreseeable future. That's going to probably largely be a virtual experience, similar to what we're doing now versus in person.
Right. Okay. Well, and I'll look forward to publicizing the opportunity for public input on that. Okay, great. I'll go to, I have a couple questions that have come in that probably would be good for Steve to answer and for Paul to answer. So I'll start with Steve. Mr. Director Torpy, if someone wanted to volunteer for the organization Parks and Rec, can they do that right now? And how would they do that? We have a lot of kids with not a lot of stuff to do this summer, so maybe they might be interested.
Absolutely. We do have volunteer opportunities that are available, and there's many ways you could call the main office and they will get you in touch with our volunteer coordinator, or you could actually just send an email to prcs@loudoun.gov and it will get distributed to the appropriate people. Obviously, all of our volunteers, they go through an initial training period, and these days that includes the training for how we operate during this pandemic. So you can expect to hear a lot about social distancing and about face coverings and personal hygiene and things along those lines. But yeah, actually, absolutely, there is volunteer opportunities available.
Okay, great. And Mr. Gilbert, how about for Nova Parks?
Absolutely, we're all for volunteers. If you go onto our website, there's an icon on the left that has Donate Volunteer. You click on there, and it will ask you kind of where you're at and what kinds of things you'd like to do, and then that'll get directed to the park manager that would sort of nearest to you or doing things similar to what you're interested in doing. I would like, while you're talking about volunteers, to just do a shout out to Karen Jones and Bill Niedringhouse. We were chatting about them just before the call started. They are amazing, but they're just two of the amazing trail volunteers that are out there. Really, you think about our trail system, it wouldn't be what it is without a whole lot of volunteer work. We rely on them and other trail volunteers extensively to do maintenance on the trails, and they're always coming up with ideas of where we can make connections. So we wouldn't be anywhere without our trail volunteers.
I completely agree. I think Bill and Karen are the hardest working couple in the Algonquin district. And I've walked a number of trails with them already, and they're very, very knowledgeable. And they are actually, Bill Niedringhouse heads, with Karen, heads the Potomac Heritage Trail Association, which has a fantastic Facebook page. So if anybody wanted to actually, get out there and get on the trails and help out, I'm sure they would love for folks to join them. Absolutely. Now, I had another specific question. I think we talked about this a little bit, but I'll start with Mr. Gilbert, and then Mr. Torpy can also answer the question. Aside from the water parks that aren't open in Nova Parks, are there any other restrictions as to how folks can use Nova Parks right now?
Now we're in phase 3, and a lot of things are open. So with phase 3, our buildings opened up. There are some restrictions on the amount of people that can be in them, but it's really open. So just at Algonquin, we have trails at Algonquin. Nova Parks has 12 miles of trails going north from there along the Potomac, which is fantastic. Golf has really had a resurgence in popularity, because if you think about it, it's inherently social distancing. So you're in a small group. We make it so it's just one rider per cart unless you're of the same household. So golf is a great thing to do. The boat launch is open. Picnicking is very popular. Playground is available. We have the Woodlands event venue. We have the cottages. one of the things that that people are finding, because everyone's travel plans have been interrupted this summer, is to do a staycation somewhere close to home. Just makes a lot of sense. So you can go to a campground, or you can go to the cottages at Algonquian. If you think about it, at the cottages, you could bring your boat, you could bring your bike, you could bring your hiking boots, you could bring your golf clubs, and you could have a whole vacation close to home. So, and with beautiful views of the Potomac River. So people are finding that these options are more desirable this summer than ever before.
Yeah, I saw this chart, I think it was from Texas, about it's sort of rated the worst activities you can do and the best activities you can do during COVID. And it was like the highest risk was red, and the lowest risk was green. And lowest risk is opening your mail, but number 2 out of 10 was camping, which
Yeah.
I was amazed to find. And I actually went camping out at Shenandoah National Park this weekend, so last weekend. So
I'll give a little plug. We don't have camping in exactly Loudoun County, but Bull Run has a big campground, which is fantastic and not far away. And Powhatan Bay is also a great campground where you can go kayaking, all kinds of things. So you can go to Shenandoah. So lots of opportunities. I've been camping a lot this summer because what else are you going to do? You need the mental break.
Yeah, and both of those parks are fantastic. You just mentioned I've run trails there at both of them. Steve, are there any activities that are restricted right now as far as Loudoun Parks and Rec?
The only 2 things that still have considerable restrictions is obviously the Adult Day Center. We have not opened that back up simply because of the populations that we serve at those facilities. We are working with the state and have come up with plans, and we will be opening those soon, but that was something that we were extremely cautious about as we move back into phase 2 and 3. The senior center programming has not started back up, but we have been doing the congregate meals program, the delivery. And recently we started allowing the seniors to drive to the center, not come into the center to pick up their meals, as a way of easing into coming back to the center. And it's been a really great success. And what has been interesting to watch is a lot of those seniors are now doing impromptu picnics, obviously social distance, on the sites, so that they can spend some time talking with their friends. And we are looking to get back into that fairly soon as well inside the facility. Aside from that, we are pretty much back to normal operations as far as service delivery and what we deliver. What is different is the number of folks that are allowed into these different programs. So, for example, our summer camps, we run summer camps all over the county at a multitude of different sites, and we are still doing that. However, we're at about 35% capacity from where we were last year, so a significant reduction in the numbers that are there. Same with things like in our recreation centers. The Virginia Forward recommendations and guidelines that we are following with the 10-foot social distancing for recreation activities, or active recreation activities or athletic activities, really limits the number that you can have in at any given time. So we are back with pretty much our normal operations, but it is significantly reduced from the number standpoint.
Gotcha. Okay. One other question that has come from a constituent, and maybe Steve can start and Jimmy can also address this. And this has always been a dream of mine. I know that we have talked about this offline, is how are we going to connect the Potomac Heritage Trail from where it kind of ends in Algonquian Park and connect it, so that you might even be able to get to Balls Bluff and beyond eventually.
Sure. And keep in mind that when the Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail was brought in. The concept really was more of a corridor for where it could lie. Obviously, the best case scenario is as close to Potomac as we possibly can, and we certainly strive for that where that is possible, and have a lot of success in getting trails actually on the ground along the Potomac. But where that is not necessarily possible, we do go other routes. And as Mr. O'Connor was mentioning earlier, some of the issues that you run into is where you cross streams. And if you have major streams such as the Broad Run, you almost come to a dead end and then don't have the ability to move beyond without really going way out of your way. Fortunately, with some of the work that's been done by the staff, by the volunteers, as well as the pros board recently, we are looking at the ability to put a pedestrian bridge across the Broad Run right there at the Broad Run Toll House. With the new things that we've been working on with Kincora, that then would put us in a situation where going south along the Broad Run, you could get down close to the WNOD and then head north. So that's one that is a possibility. We still have the issue of getting from the Potomac River to the to that stream crossing on the east side of the Broad Run, but we're working through that. As Mr. O'Connor stated, the Trails Initiative is one that is going to be a long-term, but we do have some very significant wins that we are working on in the very near term as well.
That's awesome. Jimmy, did you have any comments on that?
I'll just add that, trail development, generally, it is a long game. It always is. And I do this for my paid job. I do this kind of work, or I'm in that sector. So I understand what goes into trail development. I think, the way, we should look at trail development in Loudoun County is, what is ultimately our goal, and then what can we get on board as a stopgap, a near-term stopgap. So Potomac Heritage National Scenic Trail is a perfect example. That trail ideally is within view shed, of the Potomac for all of its mileage, ideally, and maybe long term we can do that. And the Potomac Heritage Trail Association, maybe they can do that. But short term, do we need to come off of the corridor and maybe even pick up a sidewalk or some other, some other built trail amenity to get people still on foot or perhaps bike, up the trail. So it's both, where can we connect the gaps now, short term, and where can we build that long term, robust investment that we'll have as a county amenity, as a national amenity forever.
Thank you for that. Jimmy, I'm going to keep you on for just a second. We had we were talking about multi-use trails, and we had a question come in about wheelchairs. So on LPAT, and when you're working with the consultant that's coming on, will you guys be looking at some opportunities for that kind of access on the trail system?
Yeah, the surfacing, it will be a standard that we look at, it's the general idea for the Linear Parks and Trails initiative is that most of the trails will be what I call a natural surface of some sort, gravel or crushed cinder, probably not dirt per se, but maybe there are sections that are dirt. If the soils can withstand that. But then there'll also be sections that are paved or that are a compacted surface that does meet ADA standards. So that's an absolutely important part of this. Once we have, I think, identified all of the trails on the ground, the gaps that are existing in between them, the connectivity opportunities, I think we'll be in a better place to say where we can do that, but absolutely we should, and we will look for those opportunities.
I agree. Thank you for that. Wow, it's like 10 till 7. I know that we could talk probably and we have already between the three of us, so the four of us talked a lot already about all these topics. So in closing, I wanted to give each of you an opportunity to maybe speak for a minute or two on anything that we missed, that I didn't ask, or something that you want to comment on what somebody else said to fill in some gaps. Do you want to go first, Director Torpy?
Sure. Well, again, I do want to thank you, Supervisor Briskman, for hosting this forum. This is a great way to get out directly to the citizenry, and that's why we're here. We're here to serve, and so I want to thank you again for that. I do want to reiterate something that you said in the opening, and that is that I know that Mr. Gilbert and I and Mr. O'Connor all share that idea that Parks Recreation does play a critical role in that creation of the community that we find here in Loudoun County. And as Loudoun does continue to grow and as we move forward, I see PRCS, I see Nova Parks continuing to be leaders in that development of that community that we find here. Are we where we need to be? No, I don't think that we are. But I also know that exceptional organizations are the ones that constantly are looking at themselves and constantly self-assessing and finding ways to make things better. And I think that's what we're doing. We're doing that with the LPAT committee. We're doing that with our volunteers. We're doing that through our capital improvement program. And as Nova Parks is very good at, through land acquisition and growing the parkland that we have here in Loudoun County. We're always looking for those ways to improve. And by partnering with those citizens that we have and partnering with those citizens that we serve, I think that we're going to make sure that all people are served and that Parks and Recreation remains relevant and remains essential into what I see as a very exciting future for Loudoun County. So I appreciate, again, you doing this and look forward to working with everybody as we move forward.
Thank you, Director Torpy. Mr. Gilbert, would you like to have some closing remarks? Offer some closing remarks?
First of all, Steve did just a wonderful job, and I echo everything he says. I always do because he's always spot on. One little thing I thought I would mention is the improvement to the connector trail off of the Heritage Trail by Sugar Land Run. So you contacted our office a few weeks ago and said that the connector trail that's just to the east of the Sugar Land Run stream that goes up and connects with Potomac Heritage was in need of some work. And we actually had to do a little research to figure out whose responsibility that was. It's on Nova Parks property, but it's a utility easement. So we found that it was DC Water that actually had that utility easement. We contacted them. We worked with your office, and I just heard this afternoon that they're going to be out there week of August 3rd and working for several days to improve that trail. Fantastic, site-specific improvement, but parks and trails in a more global sense are really the center of our tourism industry. They're the center of our quality of life. People choose to live one place versus another because they have access to parks and trails and water and all those things. And we are really incredibly blessed to live in this place where we have the Potomac River, we have the WNOD, and we have all these things that we can connect up. So it's wonderful that we're able to have this partnership with Loudoun County Park and Rec and Nova Parks and the Board of Supervisors and the Pros Board, who are all working on the same broad goals.
Thank you for that. And I really appreciate working out the Sugar Land Run issues with us. And I'm excited. I think you said they're going to be out there for a couple of days on August 3rd. I feel a little bit selfish because that's a trail that I'm on like all the time. So I'm like, yay, the big pipe is going to get covered up. And all. But I'm also on a lot of other trails, so I'll let you know what I see. But I really do appreciate you guys getting out there and doing that.
Sure. And just so the viewers know, they're planning on some immediate fixes, and that they're also working on some longer term fixes. So whatever's done that week of August 3rd, that'll just be the first step.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Jimmy, did you have any other last comments? Anything that we missed that you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, thanks. So, Loudoun County is not the same county it was 5 years ago. It certainly is not the same county it was 20 years ago. So acknowledging just the exponential growth that we've had in Loudoun County, I want to commend what was then Parks and Recreation, but now it's Parks, Recreation, Community Services. This vision for a countywide connected trail system is decades in the making. Parks and Rec staff have been working on this. And so, I want to acknowledge that long-term dedication to persevering through exponential growth, different board of supervisor interests and agendas over time, and the ebb and flow that happens there. So kudos and thank you. And I also want to credit the folks who have comprised what we call the Emerald Ribbons Committee, and you know who you are. It's really within the last couple of years that there's been this bubbling up of real interest and passion by volunteers to piece together what the county has done already and what opportunities lie in the future to develop this linear parks and trails vision. So it takes a lot of work. Loudoun County staff cannot do this alone. The Board of Supervisors cannot do this alone. If anybody on this call is a board member of an HOA or you're a landowner, as has been mentioned several times on this call, acquiring the land or just acquiring the access to the land as a public trail, that's the critical piece. So we're gonna be working with everybody, and we have to. If you have great ideas for trail connectivity, you have some resources here, but please do let us know that you're a volunteer and a willing participant.
Thank you so much for that, Jimmy. And I have to say, county staff has been just amazing since I've come on board in January. The institutional knowledge is there. So many people have been working there for so long. And then in Nova Parks, Paul, were you the one that actually started it at Algonquian Park and then moved up in the chain, or was that?
No, that was our director of operations, Chris Polly, who is just a remarkable professional. And he started his career at about the age of 15, working at the golf course, and is now the director of operations for the whole agency.
So that's some amazing institutional knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us. Thank you, Mr. Director Torpy, Mr. Gilbert, and Jimmy for joining us and taking time to be with us and updating us on everything Parks and Rec. And specifically, thanks for working with my office on the priorities, helping us in our community with our quality of life and our health, our trail connectivity. It's also important, and I really do appreciate it. Lastly, if community members want to get involved, you can check out the Nova Parks website, the Parks and Rec site for the county as well. Fill out your forms, and they'd love to have you volunteer and get involved. And also the Potomac Hill Heritage Trail Association is an awesome group of volunteers. And like I said, Bill and Karen are probably the hardest working couple I know in Algonquin District as far as getting out in the trails and really working hard. This town hall, like all of my monthly town halls, can be viewed on my Facebook page, Supervisor Briskman. They are recorded. And just a quick note that my next town hall in August will be, and I'm just trying to pull up the notes, it'll be on August 24th, and the topic will be public safety, and we will have a very important guest, our newly elected Commonwealth's Attorney, Yuta Bibarai. So that will be an exciting town hall in August, especially with everything coming up in the new legislative session for police reform and everything that passed that came into effect in July. So we're looking forward to that. Again, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate all the work you're doing, and I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so much.